What's up, Jets fans? Welcome to the latest edition of Jets Latest, where you get the latest on the Jets, Jets. I'm your host, the spitting statistician, Dane Martinez, and we continue to look at the training camp for the 2025 Jets, and that feeling is just getting more and more solidified, more that there is expectations there, hard work, you're not going to get off easy, but that we are actually building something here for the green and white. So as you see on the bottom here, I'm saying that camp is also showing what it means or what it takes to be an Aaron Glenn guy. Remember back in the day, there were Parcells guys, and we've heard this week also about Aaron Glenn, how he still consults with Bill Parcells. I think it is very clear what is becoming a Glenn guy, right? And one of those things are you are not going to make silly mistakes like penalties. You are not going to miss tackles. And these are things that have continued to be an emphasis throughout training camp. And it's not just in words, right? There have been actual actions that Aaron Glenn and this coaching staff has done to reinforce this. I mean, the officials are there at training camp, right? They are actually doing a number of different open field tackling drills, tackling with the tackling wheel, doing drills that are like common, to be quite honest, in like youth football, going back to the basics. We've also seen if players are committing pre-snap penalties in open session, they're being pulled. They're being sat and benched, right? So reinforcing what that is. And a lot of teams don't do this because of fear of injuries. Listen to what Aaron Glenn had to say, though. He goes, "Injuries are a part of this game, and there's no way to hide from it. Usually, when you try to hide from it, that's when they pop up. But the principles of this game will never change. This is about running, blocking, and tackling. If you don't practice that, me as a head coach, how am I giving my guys a chance to win? The only way to get better at something is to rep it. I'm not saying we're going to tackle every practice, but we're going to put ourselves in position to do it, or we're going to do it." The guys knew that coming in, and they bought into that. And that's the other thing. Everyone from top to bottom, from all pros like Sauce and Quinnen Williams and Garrett Wilson to the rookies, right? They are buying into this, that this is how we're going to instill that toughness, instill that tackling, instill that attention to detail. And remember, over the last 2 seasons, the Jets were the most penalized team in the NFL. 8.1 penalties a game last year, 7.3 penalties a game the year before that. I've also said that the Jets allowed 2.6 yards after contact last year. That was tied for the 4th most in the NFL. So the blocking and tackling focus is certainly there, and we have seen it as an emphasis, and I really think that is a key way that Aaron Glenn is reinforcing this culture, including if you're making silly mistakes, you're off the field, okay, on the practice field. I think that's really important. Another thing that we have talked a lot about here on Jets Latest is this run game. Even in the comments, people are continuously talking about Breece Hall, about Braylon Allen. We have seen Braylon Allen look good in camp. We have seen Breece Hall talk about how he knows he has to prove himself, right? How he is long for this team, how he wants to be part of this, how the operation is being run well, right? So we see all of that. But I do want to talk about what I think is going to happen here in this run game. I think we're going to see Breece Hall as the starter, as the lead back. He's also going to be used out of the backfield a lot in the passing game. But do not get it twisted. Braylon Allen is going to have a much bigger role than last year. I think he's going to get drives as the lead back. I think he's going to be used in short yardage. I think he's going to be used in the goal line. And I think he, too, is going to be used. And quite frankly, I talk about what makes an Aaron Glenn guy. There are a lot of things that Braylon Allen is saying that sort of, I think, is ingratiating himself to this new coaching staff. First off, listen to what Aaron Glenn had to say about the kind of backs in the room and how they're going to be used, right? He goes, "I told Breece that receiving will be an element of his game that we're going to try to make sure we utilize. Braylon, a 240-pound man that's always falling forward, that's where he's going to make his money. Just being able to run downhill, that's going to weigh on the defensive players. And when you continue to do that, you create something as far as a team, as far as an identity that this league will take notice of. And I'm looking forward to that," right? Again, it seems like Braylon Allen is becoming one of these Aaron Glenn guys. He likes the physicality. He likes that ability to wear on the defense. I've talked about that analogy to Sonic and Knuckles in Detroit, where Breece Hall will play that Jahmyr Gibbs kind of role, even out of the backfield, and where Braylon Allen is going to play that David Montgomery hammer kind of role. And to be quite honest, if we look even future, right? I can see this maybe being the last year for Breece Hall in the green and white. I think he's going to really help us this year. But if Allen continues to impress, maybe they don't decide to spend that money on him in the offseason. But that's a long way away. Listen also what Aaron Glenn had to say about Braylon Allen specifically. And this is start of those characteristics, those elements, which makes me really think Aaron Glenn likes what he has in Braylon Allen, even in the long term. Check it out. He goes, big, physical, tough. He's got a workman mentality. Doesn't say much. He just wants to work. Really good teammate. Understands the situation that we're all in when it comes to how we're going to progress with this team. I think that's key. He knows his situation maybe now behind Breece Hall, but maybe not for so long. Remember, Braylon Allen is only 21 years old. But going on, he goes, Aaron Glenn says, no matter what the situation is, whether he's the starter, he understands that he still wants his job on special teams. I want a team with guys like that. I'm really proud of the way Braylon goes about his business. Just like a lot of guys that I have here, I can pick those guys out easy. I think that is important. He is really hyping up Braylon Allen as a good teammate, that workman effort, something that he really, really likes. I think that's also a message to Breece, that Breece Hall, you're going to have to perform because this young buck is really right behind you. And then, again, Braylon Allen mimicking the same kind of stuff. Listen to what he had to say. He goes, I'm the type of guy that's going to do whatever's asked of me. If they want me to play linebacker, I would. If they want me to play fullback, I would. I just love football. If it's special teams, I'll block someone to make a tackle. That's the essence of football, and that is what I'm all about. It almost sounds like that's the kind of quote that can come from out of Aaron Glenn, right? So I think Braylon Allen is really starting to be admired by Aaron Glenn and really has the arrow pointing up. An interesting stash in a fantasy football dynasty league, if you want to know the truth. More on fantasy football later. But Braylon Allen converted all his 3rd and 1s. He had 8.7 yards across 19 catches, right? So he was used in that pass game as well. And listen, I think Braylon Allen's going to be a big piece of this game moving forward. One other guy I want to talk about, and every time you mention him, I talk about him as like the forgotten wide receiver, and it's Tyler Johnson, right? Like, I know we have Josh Reynolds, who I think is going to be the number 2. Arian Smith has gotten some buzz. There's Lazard there. There's Malachi Corley there. But I really think Tyler Johnson profiles as our kind of number 3-4 receiver. I think it's going to be obviously Garrett Wilson, then Josh Reynolds. Then I think Arian Smith is going to have a real interesting role. But Tyler Johnson really has a solid all-around veteran wide receiver as a 3rd or 4th option in the wide receiver room. I think it's interesting. And Aaron Glenn was talking about him as well. Kind of that he admired him from afar when they played against Tyler Johnson, I believe, with the Rams. Check out what Aaron Glenn had to say about Tyler Johnson. He goes, the first thing I remember about Tyler was a playoff game. We were playing against him, and the first route he ran a shallow crosser. Our guys in Detroit did a good job getting him down. Then he ran another shallow crosser, put his foot in the ground, redirected, and I think he gained like 60 yards. And that in itself shows his ability to feel where DBs are. And I thought he was smart. He understood exactly where to sit in the zone, how to create leverage in man, and so he may not be the fastest or the quickest guy, but sometimes when you're as smart as he is, you can create things that guys with all that speed and agility can't, because he understands leverage. He understands how to sit in the zone. So once we got a chance to sign him, it was a no-brainer for us. Now, Johnson, last year, just 26 catches, 291 yards, 1 touchdown with the Rams, but again, listen to those characteristics, right? That he's a smart player, that he knows how to use leverage. Some of the same things Aaron Glenn was talking about with Garrett Wilson that we talked about here previously on Jets Latest. Some of those elite traits, right? So once again, it is the same kind of thing. It also makes me excited because Aaron Glenn is always thinking, right? Always scouting. So remember, filed it away what Tyler Johnson did against him. I remember telling you guys here on Jets Latest what Justin Fields was able to do in starts against the Detroit Lions, running for over 100 yards. Aaron Glenn files that away, says, I can use that guy. He's smart, right? Or he's talented. He can use that. I also think that Tyler Johnson is going to have a role. I actually think Tyler Johnson's going to be on the field a little bit more even than Allen Lazard. I think it's going to be Wilson and Reynolds in 2 wide receiver sets. I think Arian Smith is going to have a role and, take the top off the defense kind of packages. And I think Tyler Johnson may surprise some, are going to be that wide receiver 3-4. Then you add, Breece Hall out of the backfield, Mason Taylor, who has looked good. And that's really enough of a pass game for Justin Fields. So that'll do it for this episode of Jets Latest. These are some of the guys I wanted to talk about. I really think Braylon Allen has the arrow pointing up. Don't sleep on Tyler Johnson, and Aaron Glenn is being very intentional, very consistent about the things that matter in terms of discipline, in terms of tackling, right? And in terms of meeting that standard, having that same kind of characteristics in the building. But I want to talk about what some of you guys said in the comments. Like, for example, Peter Gibson, 1087 says, good report. Keep up the great work. Thank you to everybody who's subscribing, watching. Tell a Jets fan friend to tell a Jets fan friend, right? We got James Baker, 6128, saying, Dane, keep them coming, brother. We are on to something. Let's go, Jets. I'm going to be here every day next week where we're getting ready for our first preseason game, for goodness sakes. I am here every day giving you the content, giving you what is happening with the green and white. I appreciate all the kind words. And then Kenneth B. Ken says, I appreciate your passion about our Jets. Question. Should I draft Fields in the first round this year of fantasy football? Now, let me tell you something. It depends on your league. It's all different about league settings, super flex, one quarterback, all that stuff, right? But generally speaking, I think you can wait on quarterback, okay? I think you want to get some of those top dual threat guys, the Josh Allen, Lamar Jacksons, the Jalen Hurts, the Jaden Daniels. Those are the top four, okay? If you want to spend the premium for that, I don't hate it. I think you wait for quarterback because quarterbacks like 8 through 15 are kind of a dime a dozen, and you can really make hay by getting your wideouts and your running backs earlier in the draft and then being just fine with some of those other quarterbacks. And that's where I think Fields is. I think Fields is behind those elite dual threat quarterbacks. I think he's behind Burrow as well. I like a dual threat quarterback. So you're not going to see me getting a Patrick Mahomes, a CJ Stroud, a Baker Mayfield, a Jared Goff. I like that dual threat ability. And after the top four guys that I mentioned, then Justin Fields is just as good as any of these other kind of running quarterbacks, like a Kyler Murray, like a Bo Nix, okay, that might be higher rated in other places. I think Justin Fields is really going to surprise. But in general, I would say to Kenneth B. Ken, no, I don't think your first round pick needs to be a quarterback, unless you're in a super flex league and you think there's going to be some crazy run. But again, rule number one is know your settings. If you have more specific questions for me, hit me up on Twitter or X. I am at Spittin' Speeds. Feel free to write here in the comments. And I am the host of the FTN Fantasy Show over on SiriusXM, Channel 87, where we talk fantasy football, we talk all sports, and FTN is a great website with kind of tools, data, content to help you become a better fantasy player. Ironically, tomorrow, I am in a big-time experts industry fantasy football league draft with guys you may have heard of like Andy Behrens, Jeff Ratcliffe, Brandon Funston, the King, Scott Angle, Frank Stanfield, Joe Pisapia, and others. Friends of mine in the industry, we call it Jake Seeley. We call it the Flex League of Experts put on by my friend Jake Seeley. We're going to be drafting in Midtown Manhattan. Come check us out if you want to have details on that as well. You can talk to me and some of these other kind of heavyweights in the fantasy football game. But, you know, I'm always happy to talk fantasy football, but as you know, I will be here every single day talking about the Jets, Jets. So thank you to everybody. Hit me up in the comments. Hit me up on social media. Next week is a big week for us. Training camp will continue, and we will have a preseason game. We are going to see what it looks like on the field being coached by Aaron Glenn. I'm excited. I know you are too. But everybody, that'll do it for this episode. Have a great weekend. We will be back next week to talk more Jets, Jets. But for now, we out of here. Peace.